Good afternoon. It's 2:30 on Thursday. Volkswagen is in good shape. Got the linkage replaced between the stick shift and the gearbox. It's driving good. I'm excited. York VW is pretty darn okay. Thank you, York Volkswagen. Coffee today is brought to us by me and a Firaxis mug that I think my roommate Steve left. One of the Steves that has lived with me left his Firaxis mug. I worked there, but never got one of these mugs. But it's mine now, motherfuckers. Sorry, didn't mean to curse. It just kind of came out because I have feelings. It's cracked. It's a little cracked. By the way, Sid Meier's memoir is now on sale. Go look it up and buy it. You might hear a story or two about civilization. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for clicking. Thanks for liking. Thanks for being you in this time of COVID. I want to do a really quick sub 30 minute demonstration today on using tone to create depth. Now, I did a video yesterday with this drawing showing my development process for it, and my conclusion at the end of it was it feels a little flat. My character is on the right. These two gentlemen have a nice pose, feel pretty dynamic. These guys a little flatter. And I said I'll try to make up for that using tone. So we have some line work that is on a separate layer. Let's quickly establish a foreground, middle ground, background using tone. So firstly, let's create a layer underneath of this, and let's fill with a flat, even gray, just to demonstrate some principles here. Flat, even gray, taking color completely out of the situation. I'm going to use my Tom brush, which is pressure sensitive. Let's create some highlight in the foreground, the closest elements. Let's say maybe the hands and the knees that we can see. And let's use a darker color at the bottom for the background. So what happens if we just gray in the background here of this vehicle in the back, and then create some shadow and lightly glaze in, and then we go lighter up through maybe to the foreground here. We'll sample the middle color. So we have a horizon line that's the darkest. Why couldn't the horizon line always be the darkest? Well, the horizon is the furthest thing away. That means it's reflecting the least amount of light back at you. And then let's go up. Let's go a little bit lighter as we go up higher. That sounds pretty good. Let's pick that. Let's come up. So we have this kind of double gradient where we have like darkness in the back at the furthest point, which is the horizon. It goes a little lighter and a little lighter. If you're painting sky, it's actually the opposite. You're going to be like desaturated, and it's going to be darker and darker blue as you go up, unless there's a sun up there. It's all these exceptions that prove the rules. But let's start going lighter and bringing out the foreground by glazing over little areas of these characters. Let's go back to that maybe like, let's quickly think about this. Let's go 60% for the furthest guy back, and let's just generally fill him up. So we're just going to paint 60% loosely, like it's a little bit of a glazing element. I'm pressing harder to make it thicker, and then lighter with my brush stroke to thin it on. And if we draw outside the lines, that's fine. We're on a separate layer. So we have 60 for this guy. Let's go 70 for the gentleman that's immediately in front of him. And we're going to make sure that that 70 is 100%. Right where there's an overlap, it's going to be brighter right there. 70% on this fellow. And we're going a little bolder on the elements that are sticking out in front, and a little softer on the elements that are further behind. So soft in the shadowy midsection, and a little thicker at the knees, and then soft again towards the bottom of the leg. Look at that. Suddenly you have things coming forward, like the hand and the knee is coming forward, the shoulder is coming forward, other parts are recessing. Okay, let's go 80 to the next guy, 80%. And let's glaze him in real quick, real quick. How are we doing out there? Looks like the stream's going okay. Lightly for the midsection. And the hat. Something like that. Lightly there on the arm. A little bit hotter on the pouches. They're looking up towards the sky. A little lighter on the gun, which is also looking up. It's receiving more light, but also it's closer to the torso. And then the knee and the foot. In this case, the top of the foot might be the brightest, might be the closest thing to us. Between the knees and the feet, the top of the feet, the nose gets a little bit more. Something like that. Got a bushy beard. Let's do that. This is a good way to see our proportions, our massing, volume, silhouette, all these wonderful things. And then, lastly, we have 90%. 90% for the closest guy, which is going to be our man Yuri in the foreground, who's doing the Soviet squat, which we all wish we could do on the regular. But I am too fat. My knees cannot handle the Cossack squat. So lightly on the feet, raising a little bit lighter, less pen pressure, a little more pen pressure for the knees because they're coming towards us, and then lighter for the inner parts of the body that will receive shadow. So we're thinking next about ambient occlusion, but immediately you can start to see that just because of some tone, we're getting a subtle sense of pop and depth. So maybe now I want the tank to pop off against the background a little bit. So what's this background tone you have here? Let's pick that. What do we got? This looks like 16%. Let's go up 10% from that. Let's say 25%. And we can glaze on lightly some 25%. Looks like I've got a little bit of red hue here, and that actually is fine. A little bit of red's kind of nice. Just a hint of red. Just a little bit of glazing around the corners and the edges. Just making this silhouette of this hulking tank thing pop off just a little bit off the background. And then we can go even a little darker. Let's go back down to maybe 12%. We can go a little blue if you wanted to get into some color. Just a slight bit on the blue on the cooler spectrum. That way we just have a little bit of color vibration, but we're not worrying too much about mixing colors, just a little bit. It's a little nice to go warm where your lights are hitting it. Warm stuff gets closer to you, a little cooler as it gets further away. Why not? That's fun. And try flipping it sometime. You can make something pretty surreal feeling if you go the other way with it. It's also nice to have a little bit of red in the ground. Hey, why not? This could be fun. Let's paint that just in the ground a little bit. Let's make it a little bit more earthy, bring it up. God, I said I was going to get just into tone, but I can't help it. Just wanted to get a little bit of color in there to make it feel more like terra firma, just a little bit more like Earth and not the backside of the moon, which is what things that are high contrast black and white will feel like. Will feel like the backside of the moon, something like that. All right, so we got our characters. So the next thing I would think about is creating vertical gradients. Vertical gradients, and we're going to stay within the kind of tones we have already. We're going to maintain this general tonal area. So what's our brightest tone here? This is going to be 53% is probably the mid-average tone, and then the brightest spot, 60%. So let's try working with that. 60% is going to be our absolutely brightest, and we're going to hit the tops with that 60%. And what if we want to go down to shadow? I would say 40. 40%. You can throw a little blue if you wanted to. If you want to get into some color, let's just glaze on 40%. I'm channeling a little bit of what Feng Zhu showed me once. I got a one-day class. I didn't even pay for it. I just kind of sat in on a class my friend was paying for, and Feng was nice enough to let me do that back in the day. That was like 2004 or something. So just getting a little bit of highlight there. Going to round off the sides, are making them darker, and a little bit of shadow right behind the foreground character will really cement that in there. So that 60% is actually going to be a bit of a shadow color on the next guy. But maybe we'll start with the shadow area there. What is that, 33? Okay, that's pretty dark, but cool. Let's go up to, let's try 43. 43, a little blue, something like that. Let's come into the middle area. I'm drawing in ambient occlusion, areas that are creases and corners that don't collect as much ambient light. So on me right now, we have some flat light coming from these two windows. We see my face is illuminated, but as it gets into the pockets of my eye channels, you start to get a little bit of shadow. because the deep corner's in there. It's not there's a direct shadow being cast. It's just that less ambient light is coming in because there's occluding angles. Hope you guys understand that. So super fast demo. We're moving quick, but I know you guys can pause this. You can track along. Cool. So a little darker in the midsection. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that blue. I like that tone. I'm just going to glaze in a little bit of that darkness in the midsection, the crotch area, the groin area of my other characters too. Tom, why are you so obsessed with groins? Well, it's actually a very complex joint, and I think it's underappreciated. And for most of my career, I tried to avoid drawing groins. So in my late 30s, I'm just saying, screw it, I'm going to embrace it. Let's draw all the hard things. Toes, fingers, groins, whatever it is. You know, nature made us, it's beautiful, whatever you want to do. But I'm not going to go nudie because I'm not interested in that. What we're drawing today is for a commission for a good friend, Sean Carpenter, who has commissioned me in the past, likes to talk about military stuff, makes miniature board games, and this will be part of a package of illustrations in a new book coming out sometime, I think, in 2021. But who knows? Maybe it can come out sooner, just like COVID, surprised everybody. We might even get a vaccine sometime this year for COVID. How cool would that be, huh? That would be pretty cool. Let's have a good future by preparing now, right? Is that good advice? What do you guys think? Whoever's tuning in, welcome. Welcome to the stream. A little Thursday afternoon fun time. I've had a lot of coffee today. See, suddenly putting a little light highlight in the background really flattens out the image. So let's paint that back down. We're going to sample the color around it. Let's paint it back down. Just a little sample, a little bit more light there, and then the shadow paint behind it to establish what is the foreground and what is the background. So suddenly, let's take a look before and after. Before, we have a flat illustration. After, this was literally 20 minutes of work. Suddenly, we start to develop some depth. It's foreground, middle ground, background. Foreground are the guys on the ground. Middle ground are the guys standing up. Background is this vehicle behind it. It's immediate. Let's see. Does this work flipped? What happens if you invert this? Will it still work? Let's see. Control I. It's interesting. It's like you flip the infrared. You know, white hot, black hot. Flip the infrared image. You do have a sense of foreground, middle ground, background still, but it's a little weird. Your brain doesn't really know what to do with it, but you can tell that there are things at 3 different levels. It's a little 2001 Space Odyssey. Lights coming from everywhere, coming from underneath. It's kind of weird, but if you look at it longer and longer, you start to believe that there is a white background or like a snowfield, and this picture is being taken looking from inside of a barn, so from inside of a dark area, looking out towards something that's awfully light. So let's flip it again, and that's immediately we get that kind of effect. Now, if you want to get specific and get into some illusionism, some trompe-l'oeil kind of stuff, let's just take an example of the guy's goggles. Let's get in close, and I'll show you how I might refine this. So we're going to keep thinking about what is on top of what else. So darkening objects go backwards. So the armor that's in the foreground will stay light and maybe even get a highlight. And the stuff that's in the background will go darker, or things that are being occluded, like the sides of these goggles and headphones. We'll give you some cast shadow. Anywhere where there's an edge on top of another edge, like a piece of paper, or like what if there's one object like this hand in front of this background object, we're going to have a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of ambient occlusion. So even if this is fully lit and then this hand's fully lit, it's going to be a little bit brighter, even if they're not actually overlapping in the real world. As long as they're overlapping in the drawing plane, look how these fingertips are a little bit brighter than this background. It's a little bit of an illusion that we can use for the eye to be tricked to do what we want it to do, to understand, to believe the realm we are working in. What I might do at this point in my process, the way I refine something, is I got my foreground, middle ground, background. Maybe I've established some colors. I might copy these 2 layers together, merge them to a new layer, and that way I can paint over the whole shebang. You can do some interesting things. You can take the line work and tone it down. You can do all kinds of stuff. I might leave the line work at, let's try 80%. This is kind of nice. Let's put that at 80%. Let's merge these two. And we'll go yellow to say I'm working on that. Just make a little mark. It's kind of nice that you can color code some of your layers. Stuff you want to keep, stuff that's part of work you want to throw away later. You can do that too. So I'm going to paint over this like as if it's a charcoal drawing. I'm getting into some of my white charcoal. Maybe it's a colored pencil. You don't, or maybe it's like a painting. I'm trying to think what's an analog to this, where I'm able to really paint directly over this surface. So what's the beautiful thing about digital is it's always wet, it's always dry. You can manipulate it. However, so a little bit more shadow. This face of the front of the helmet is tilted down just a little bit, so it's going to get a little bit more shadow. The mouth armor. I'm imagining this is some kind of armor, gas mask, part of the face. Maybe to really make it feel like armor, maybe we'll give it some slats, like very specific facets. That might be interesting. Let's facet it a little bit. Darker on the further retreating side, and then darker still underneath. We get into the neck area. This is going to be shadow. This is going to be ambient occlusion underneath. This face isn't facing upward, so it's going to get a little bit more shadow. We're displacing on. The power of the pressure sensitive Wacom pen. I know I'm going a little fast. I've had a lot of caffeine, and I have all this coffee to drink, and it's only 2:40 in the afternoon. Energy drink today was kind of weird. I accidentally dumped some vanilla extract, too much. This is not a good cup of coffee, ladies and gentlemen. Don't feel envious of my coffee. This is actually torturous. It's like medicine to drink through. Some medicine's pretty good. This is not good medicine. So that's the 20-minute demo. I'm going to keep working. You can, if you have more interesting pressing issues, I will not feel bad if you turn this off. So thank you for tuning in. If you're hanging out, welcome to hang out. We're going to develop this a little bit more. I have 15 more minutes before I have to make a phone call. Thanks for hanging out. If you're here, say hi. Say what up. Let me know you're here. I'm here to answer your question. Ryan Griffin liked the video. Thanks, Ryan. You're a talented man. Gene Wagaman said something on someone else's profile. That's cool, too. So notifications from Facebook, not giving me the information I really need for my day-to-day life. And I think that's a lesson for you and for everybody else. When you need to know what's happening right now, maybe Facebook notifications aren't the first place you should go. Let's continue drawing. Let's continue drawing. What do I want to do next? What's most important? Oh, I think nailing the silhouette. Let's clean up the outside lines. Let's darken down just a little bit the silhouette. Let's really establish what the shape of this character is. Thinking about Moby Frank, ladies and gentlemen. Artist of Team Fortress 2, worked for Valve. I don't know where he is now. I ran into a friend of his in a parking garage. We got talking about game art. He's like, yo, I know Moby Frank. He's like, I know Moby. And I was like, the EDM, like techno artist? He's like, no, the artist from games. I'm like, oh, Moby Frank. I met him. I got to meet him at Valve once. I got a tour. Thanks, Gabe Newell. It was fun. I got to see the master. He was young too. He's probably like 35. I was like, oh damn, I thought this guy would be like a hell of a lot older. No, he was a pretty young dude. But he was working in gouache on some brown paper, and so maybe that's what this process is like. It's like, well, I never used gouache, but I imagine that what gouache did for people in the 80s and 90s is what digital does for the production illustrator in 2020. It's quick. It dries immediately. It's also wet all the time. You can do stuff to it. So, okay, we're establishing the silhouette of this guy. Maybe we're painting over or either darkening or lightening different shapes. This could be kind of fun. Faces that are going away from the viewer get darkened. Faces that are towards the viewer get a little highlight. It's okay to hit that little highlighted edge. Maybe like there's a crease. Just gotta pop one line on it. Just boop, pops that line right out. This lens is going to be darker just because it's black. There's some camera-ish body stuff going on. This is a pair of Russian imaginary goggles or something. There's some LED lights on the top, infrared LEDs or something, some kind of bracket system. You need some got to think about our industrial design components here, and you can. I like to brainstorm that stuff out with shape as much as I do like using line work. Sometimes shape is a little bit more descriptive. If you're familiar working with it, you can go pretty quick establishing a shape. Some people like using Blender or 3D Max to rough out a scene. They use a posed character. They can pose it ZBrush even. Sure, that's cool. If you want to do that, that's fine. I find that to take a lot of time. If you're doing a fully rendered, like fully realized, I don't know, some kind of super illustration for a publishing deal, then I can understand spending that kind of time. For what this is going to be, a small, maybe quarter-page illustration in a gaming book. I'm not going to stage the whole thing in 3D, and that's just more technical and less fun. Some people get really excited about the technical side of things. I get really excited about the doing thing. Learning the technology is just a stopgap to actually making the thing. All right, taking a looking wide on this whole thing. We've done a little bit of work on this character. It's starting to feel like it's getting fleshed out. We can maybe it's time to move on to something else and bring up another character to the level that this is at. So we're just going to finish establishing. One thing I want to establish for this guy is that his actual foot, I want to change up and clarify the knee pad situation, and I want the leg pointed more up towards the viewer and less towards the ground. So we're going to change some of these lines so that they're even with the point of view. Let's pick the darker color, paint in, and a little bit of the lighter color, and then the hydraulics are going to be lit going to the eye, and then there's the toe of the boot. It's going to be something like this, and then the heel is on the ground and it's pretty flat. Something like that, and then the shadow is on the ground underneath. Something like this. Let's see if that makes sense. I don't know. We'll work with that for now. Cool. That's feeling okay. It probably could be a little bit longer, and we can just copy and paste. Let's copy and paste this bit here. Control C, Control V, and then just move it down just a little bit. That feels better. That feels better. Merge it down. Good. Cool. That feels pretty good. And then darken the hand. This hand is actually over the holster. I didn't realize that. So we're going to darken this hand down and lighten this forehand up, even though that forehand is kind of hidden under the belt and under the body armor just a little bit. We got these pouches. We got like magazine pouches for the rifle up here. Which direction is this going in? Yeah, I don't know, something like that. Let's go something like this. Something like that, maybe. Cool. Good. Gaps in between. Hands down here. The thumb is going to get a little bit of light. And then everything else is going to be a little bit darker. Trigger finger. Maybe this guy's a lefty. He's got his holster on his other side. It's all good. Cool. Just a little bit darker in there, just to give it a little bit more depth. Cool. So see how that roundingness of the forearm is giving it some depth, what's closest to you and what's further away, something like that. So we have the close edge here, and then the far edge is going to be on the top. And you can just do some tonal work to really get that thing to feel like it's disappearing into space. Something like that. Something like that. It's kind of fun. Let's keep going. Let's come over to this guy. This guy feels super flat right now. So let's give him some form. This is our friend the Cossack. So I want to quickly paint over this. I wanted to do a fun Cossack hat for this guy. Something that's kind of wild. Like this is a goofy or culture. I don't know. Goofy is probably the wrong word to use because the Cossacks are pretty badass. The classic Ukrainian steppe horsemen, the classic cavalry. So I probably shouldn't make fun of his funny beard and hat because he could kill me. Yes, savage, a noble savage of a man. So let's give him the heavy eyebrows. Like a Scottish, Russian Navy captain, Ramius, Marco Ramius from Hunt for October. This is kind of fun. It's a little nuts for a minute. So we're going light on top. It's got a crazy fur thing that's coming out of the helmet. That's fun. We're just making marks. We're making little spaghetti lines. That's pretty cool. Having fun with it. Tom, you're saying fun a whole lot. Why is that? Well, I think John Boy Media is hilarious, and he uses the word fun a lot because it's easy. If you don't want to drop other F-bombs, you could just say fun, and it's easy, and it makes it a family-friendly show. I think that also came from a war movie called Jarhead. The F-bomb was dropped, and the reporter lady is like, they just say the F-bomb, and I don't know what Denzel Washington, I think it was Jamie Foxx, is like, no, that was fun. He said fun, madam. Field fun. Let's get a little radio business coming out of here. Tonal work. This is kind of fun. I'm catching myself every time. Let's get some planes in the face. If you want to add some depth to the face, we're thinking about the planes that are retreating away from the viewer, getting a little bit of shadow, and the planes that are directly facing the viewer get the highlight. So we want a lot of light right on top of this nose, and then we have some cast shadows down there. We got some fun eyebrow thing here. We can actually go a little darker on that. That's good. We got a missing tooth, maybe that's cool. Creases in the face, maybe get some kind of scar thing. That's cool. That guy looks tough. Let's give him some darker shadows over his eye. Now beards are never consistent. My beard, for instance, I have these two dark patches along the front of my mustache area, and then I have a big gap right underneath my nose. Everyone's mustache is going to be different, and then everyone's beard is going to be different too. So what does my beard do? It's a little darker right in the soul patch area, and then darker along the sides, and kind of lighter up here. And then I have a couple areas that are gray, a couple areas that are more black. So you can really have a lot of fun being creative when painting a beard, going light and dark, and it's really anything goes. I'm famous beards. I'm thinking about the Batman character Lazarus. I think he's got I think he has two distinct dark lines and then a white patch in the middle. That's pretty common where you might have a dark mustache and then a wider chin. It makes the chin look bigger and more masculine. So that's a trick you can take advantage of or not take advantage of. So that guy's looking pretty serious. We got the planes of the sides of the face. Let me get a little bit of a highlight under the eye here, and then over the eye there. Let's keep that scar because we like that. It's pretty fun. Let's do a little bit of a light highlight just to give it a little bit more light. Wow, he feels pretty intense right now. Let's get a little bit of a reflection on the specs. The Google prototype scopes, as Dr. Disrespect calls them there. This Domocon looking face is going to be fun. Maybe just paint a little bit of red in that. Maybe we just do black, white, and red tonal drawing. That's kind of cool. He's got these teeth painted in. He's the enemy, but he's fun. You know. That's pretty entertaining right there. Now a little bit more teeth. That's kind of cool. And if we want to round this off, we can go a little darker on the side. A little more saturated in the middle. Just gradient it out to the side. That's cool. This guy needs a lot of work, but he's in the background, so we'll get to him a bit later, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to restart the stream. The stream had problems. That's fine.